Good evening, Music Portland. How's everyone doing tonight, huh? All right, so first of all, we want to welcome you. We want to thank you, each and every one of you, for your participation in our latest efforts to stop the Live Nation venue in the Central East Side. And we're here to talk about what happened, where we're going, and what's possible now. So my name is Sherry Jameson. I am one of the members of the Music Policy Council with MusicPortland. And I want to introduce, we've got Marshall Runkle, Mary McLaughlin, Kate O'Brien, and Jesse Valencia. So this is really a time we're gonna do a quick recap. We're gonna talk about what we learned, kind of the history of the context that we were stepping into that we didn't actually know until we were there and afterwards. We're going to talk about the wins, despite the outcome. And we're also going to be talking about what our community's options are at this point. And what are the next steps for Music Portland and us as a community and what we can do now. And then at the end, we will open it up to anybody to share their experience, their reflections on this Live Nation effort. So let's start off with a recap of the events leading up to the Prosper Portland sale of the land, as well as the land use appeal hearing and what their outcomes were. So I want to invite Marshall to start.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Marshall Runkle. I'm the local government guy at Strategies 360. It's a local public affairs and politics shop. And so I was brought into this debate or process when it became clear that the Live Nation project was going forward in the middle of July, and help people scramble to find a land use attorney and assemble opposition to the project. So because most of my career I've worked at the city of Portland, I've been through lots of different land use fights, and having good representation definitely makes a difference in the outcome. So Music Portland did an incredible job of kind of organizing on the dime. It was pretty clear that the intention of the Live Nation proponents was to sneak the project through the process during the summer months when people weren't paying attention. And Music Portland kind of prevented that from occurring and rallied a huge number of people to participate in the process. And credit to many, many people in this room for kind of expressing our community's values and that are not consistent with the business practices of Live Nation, as alleged by the United States Attorney General and now 40 other states' attorneys general. So the first step was getting through the hearings officer. That's where all the technical arguments about land use were made. Like, it's an industrial area. That's the zoning of the area in the Central East Side. So to do a major entertainment venue, it required a conditional use permit. And that's a specific legal process at the city that there's defined criteria by which you judge a project. Like, is the transportation system capable of accommodating this type of use? Is other public infrastructure available? Like, there's some really specific and very boring legal tests about whether a project is approvable. But There was also an approval criteria around the public benefit of the project, and that's where strategically kind of leaned in on making an argument about the public benefit of the site, and it came down to I guess I'm gonna fast forward through a lot of boring process stuff and to say, like, in the last week, when the hearings officer's original approval of the decision for the conditional use permit, a bunch of new arguments had emerged, including from me and my team around why are we having a land use hearing for use that has not been approved by the city in any form or fashion, like, and so to answer those concerns on 48 hours notice, MusicPortland sold the land, the public land for the project, and there was a hearing literally the night before the land use hearing about transferring the property to Live Nation. To
the developers, right?
What?
To the developers, right?
Yeah, to the local developers who, I mean, I guess I want to be absolutely clear, like, our team, none of the opponents of Live Nation have a problem with the local people. And, like, as a strategy, what Live Nation did is they hid behind the local people. And there was a smart strategy on their part. So credit to them. So to answer one of the process questions, they sold the property the night before on short notice, and then
How much they sell it for?
I'm going to get the number wrong. I just don't know.
2.4, 2.5?
For less the amount bid for mitigate, and that's for 34 or 5,000 square feet on the Portland waterfront in the center of the city. I've got a kind of crappy house in the West Hills you can buy for a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
instead of the original terms, which were, they were gonna lease the land. Oh, okay, whatever. They were gonna lease the land, for $132,000 a year for 100 years, at which point it would revert back to public ownership. With 36 hours notice, they flipped and said, no, we're gonna sell it for this ridiculous price, and said that it was our fault because we used the word subsidy in September of 2023. They said, we've been working on this for a year. We never knew anything about it. They never did anything publicly, and only 24 hours ahead of time did they tell us that there'd been a total change of approach. So that's those
Can I
bits.
just say one thing? Just in case, like me, you don't really understand how government works very well. MusicPortland is the development arm of the city. So they decide what the city does with any land sales or building sales of publicly owned things. So that's important in case you didn't know that.
It used to be called the Portland Development Commission. Yeah.
So it was a very dramatic, like, series of events that happened leading up to the hearing. And we had been working on this for 2 years before that, in conversation with the developers, with MusicPortland.
Two canceled Live Nation meetings.
Yeah, 2 canceled Live Nation meetings. So it's not like we hadn't tried to communicate and to negotiate before we got to the land use approach. But then leading up to the land use hearing, yeah, it was just like boom, boom, boom. We had emergency meetings on Zoom. So it was quite dramatic, and at that time, all of you, the entire MusicPortland community, were flooding the inboxes of our representatives, telling them, please, no Live Nation in our venue in our city, telling your stories. We had
Yeah, I mean, the numbers were pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Like, there were over 1,000 individual messages from people in Portland and people without Portland to the city council members, 180,000 people saw MusicPortland's social media stuff. Over 5,000 people clicked through on that. My favorite numbers, though, are from the Portland Tribune. They did a readers survey. And like over 90% of people in that survey said that they were not in favor of Live Nation having a venue in Portland. So so I think that like the overarching, like from a campaign perspective, from a kind of the stuff that I do perspective, we are incredibly successful in communicating a message to the city. What we weren't successful in doing is translating that message to the members of the city council. And where they really just closed ranks behind this project and forced the Prosper Portland commissioners to close ranks around this project too. And I've been around politics for most of my adult life. Like, I'm almost 60 years old. Like, I had never seen people say so strongly how worried they were about how they were voting. It was a weird situation. But I mean, there's a whole nother chapter to the story. Like, after the city council, the next stop on the land use train is a statewide land use board of appeals that will hear if there's an appeal of the city council decision, it will go to them. They'll take a look at the quality of the decision that the city council made. If they don't believe that the city council made a decision that's consistent with the land use rules, they'll remand that decision back to the city council, and that will be a new city council, not the same city council that just voted 5-0. So there's potentially another bite at the apple there. But I'm happy to answer any questions people have about the process or the politics.
Yeah, just from an actual process standpoint, is it legal for them to move from the lease to the sale without any public hearings?
I'm not a lawyer, so I would say, I don't know the answer to the question. Like, but those are the kinds of things that people are digging into. What I testified at Prosper Hort, there's certainly an ethical obligation to process it. The local development team was awarded the property in a competitive process in 2018, when the idea for development on that site was a mixed office development. And that was the last time there was any public process associated with what the site was going to be used for. And so, I've seen, believe me, I've sat through hours-long public processes about whether we should have a bike lane or a speed bump, like, let alone selling a chunk of property for a very controversial use.
Yeah. So I want to move on to Mara. What did we learn, or expanding on, what did we learn about the history and the context of like what we were walking into?
One of the things,
See, I did it.
people tell me to be quiet most of the time.
Yeah, I know.
So what it was the day or two after the city council hearing, that they announced a TIF district. Didn't they do that right then? Day after?
No, it was in an existing expiring urban renewal area.
Okay.
So the Central East Side has been in an urban renewal area for the last 20 plus years. That's what funded the convention center and a bunch of other developments. You could see what a great job the public has done on redeveloping that area. Like, sorry to editorialize.
It's all right. TIF districts are a challenge, and tax increment financing. They're basically funding public benefits to development in certain areas to build it up. And some of the big ones are like downtown Portland, which needed money to be developed. Did it? You know, East Portland needs some money to be developed, and they're not getting it. I think that the TIF funding is a place that we're looking at and finding out kind of how that all works. And a lot of this is us learning this on the fly, except for this fella. The other things that we've learned are that there were a lot of things that were pre-wired for us never to win. You know, the participation of, people on the earliest planning that were sort of greasing the skids in the ways that they needed it. And that doesn't feel like an appropriate public policy to me. And those are some things that we're looking at. I think the stuff that we're learning about are, I think going to build the sophistication of MusicPortland a lot. We've shown we can mobilize. I think we have a lot of people kind of afraid of us because we are galvanized. We are potent, and for the first time in Portland's history, we're talking with a united voice to make sure that we get our due. And that's definitely, gets into the win part of this. But I think the context was that it's a complicated process and there are a lot of insiders in it from the beginning that we didn't have the benefit of. So I would say that's the biggest one.
Thank you. So Jesse, you've been part of this initiative for for at least the last year since you showed up and joined the Music Policy Council. What, in your mind and with this group, do you feel were the wins despite the outcome?
Hi. First, hi, everybody. I'm Jesse Valencia, if you don't know me. I moved here a year ago, and I pretty much right away got involved in MusicPortland and in this initiative. In Arizona, I was a lobbyist for the Film and Media Coalition, so that's where I got some experience in government. And I got that experience because I was doing, just for a little backstory, this is significant as to my perspective on this. But when I was doing that, I had infiltrated the Arizona Republican Party in order to do a publicity stunt for an album that I was releasing. And it worked. And the thing about that is that if you're thinking about Republicans in Arizona, you have to use a lot of fighting and biting tactics and doing all these sorts of things. And the result of that I didn't realize after it had all happened, was that where I was living, and I'm indigenous, my tribe is Yaqui, which is from Sonora, Mexico, if you're not aware of that tribe, but where I was living was where the Navajo and Apache tribes are. And that mobilized these people to vote. This was something that I had done from 2017 to 2021. And it mobilized these people to vote in Navajo and Apache County, Arizona, and they ended up helping the state flip to blue. Thank you, but think about this. This is what I've seen here. So now I come into Portland, right? I don't know anything about this place. I'm stepping into it everywhere I go. Coming, just based on the things I say. And I don't mean to do that, but I'm kind of learning as I go, right? So I come into this situation that we've all been talking about. And it's easy if you've not been watching it or in tune with it to see the developers, big bad corporation, government, and you go in and you think, we were going in there with 80 to 100 people. I'm probably using hyperbole. There could have been 40 people there, but I'm going to say there's 100 people there who were testifying with us. We walk in there, and we're showing up there was 3 people with me in Arizona when I argued for film tax credits. And it's easy to go, we got to win this thing, right? Look, there's 100 of us. They got to listen to us, right? We're the public. We're the people. We're here. We're showing out. And then we just got steamrolled over. And it was like, well, how did this happen? And then so obviously, like we were saying, we're going through, we're researching, we're trying to understand what happened ourselves. And my big takeaway, being a newcomer to this city, is I'm realizing, well, the developers and Prosper and the city, these people all have relationships that they've formed over 10, 15 years, and they've been doing things like developing a Live Nation project, but it wasn't Live Nation, maybe it was a commerce center or something else. And they've been doing this in this process for years, and they haven't had anyone stand up to them the way that 100 people just stood up to them in that room where they've never had to hear people telling them, don't do this before. So they did what they usually do, but they had to create a situation to give themselves a reason to make it make sense for themselves with their own buddies, because that's who they talk to. So that's what I see coming out of that. I mean, that's just my honest perspective coming in. But the wins that we had, besides, I mean, the reason why I explain that is that anyone walking into that situation, that's like me walking into any one of your houses and going, you know what, I like this, but you need to change all this around and you need to move this furniture. And, you know, that's what they were hearing when we were walking in there. That's how out of tune this process is. So when you think about that, there was no way anyone was going to win. And then when you realize that, then you go, well, wait a minute. How we did win was 100 people came out. Those 100 people told 10 people, who told another 10 people. We got on the news. Everyone knows what happened. As Marshall said, like 96% of people don't want this business model in our city. And for the first time, I wasn't the one who stepped in it. So if you look at it that way, now everyone is aware of what's happening, and that's a win. There was, going off of these tactics that Marsha was saying they were hiding behind us. If you look at page 34 through 36 of the DOJ complaint, it explains how Live Nation treats their competitors that they go into those cities with. And it's a combination of intimidation through the press or through whoever, right? And then there's a muddying of the waters where it's like, it's us, or it's Live Nation versus AEG. Well, Live Nation controls 60 to 70% of the market. AEG owns 20%. Yeah, they're still big, but that 20% is comparable to the other 20% of indie vendors, right? So it's an apples and oranges thing that is meant to muddy the waters. And so they'll throw out these things. So when you understand that that's what's happening, and you see that everyone around you understands what's happening, you won because you know what they've been trying to hide from you. So when we're going into November, when we're going into this election and we're holding these people accountable who just passed this through without this public process, there are consequences. And we remember what happened. And it has nothing to do with making anything break apart. It has nothing to do with hurting anyone or being mad or whatever. It's about doing what's right for this community, doing what's right for our city, and working together to make that happen. And we have that win. All of the, like a whole bunch of candidates showed up to show solidarity with us. A whole bunch of them. And these aren't guys that we endorsed. They showed up because they know that Live Nation is bad. You might have seen a couple of them in the press. Steve Novick was talking about in Willamette Weekly how he regrets that he allowed Uber in when he was in city council, and he sees this Live Nation thing as the same thing. And he went out there independently on his own accord and did that. So people are listening. They see that the music sector, if it makes $3 billion a year in Portland, that's as big as manufacturing, which is the unions. So if the unions are as important as the music sector in this city, then they need to be paying attention. So it doesn't matter who is being held accountable for this. We need to be keeping engaging. That was our win. They're listening to us. We're not being invisible anymore. We won more than they won. Absolutely. So that's my viewpoint on that.
Jesse Valencia, people. I'm going to throw one more thing I meant to say in the last part in terms of context. When we went to Prosper for the hearing, they had one agenda item before they got into the Live Nation question, and it was a review of Prosper Portland's success or experience in promoting development in the city of Portland. That's property development, that's all this stuff. They gave themselves incredibly high marks on being able to attract new businesses and do all these things and build, support new constructions and do all of that. They themselves said, we failed on considering the impact of these constructions and what we did. We should get better at that. And then they went on to sell the land to Live Nation.
Yeah. So what are our community's options at this point? And I want to open it to Kate.
Oh, well, I can take this one here. Hi. So, as I said before, I have never been a political person. I joined the board of MusicPortland because I'm excited about music and musicians and the musical community, and I believe that it is a force to be reckoned with. And then all of a sudden, I'm testifying in front of City Council. So, not all of a sudden. Couple years that went in between there, but I started going to our music policy meetings just to kind of observe, because I'm the president of the board. It seemed like it'd be good to know what this really active part of our music world is all about, and I started learning a lot more about how the city works and everything. So I want to talk about why this election is such a big deal. Everybody says every election is a big deal, but this is a particularly big deal because in 2022, the voters of Portland passed by 57% a reform of our city government. I'm going to let Marshall has to keep me in check if I misquote something. But from what I've come to understand, we tried 10 times since 1913 to do the same thing. The way that the government worked before, or now, that we're voting on November 11th, what is changing is that the government before was a 5-person city council, that those people were voted at large, and the mayor was part of the city council. And those people were hired because they have administrative backgrounds. They're basically bureaucrats, and they all had the duty to run one of the bureaus or several of the different bureaus. So their job was what? Not.
No, I'm just saying that. I'm not.
Okay, they're not necessarily bureaucrats, but part of their job it was to do this sort of administrative work, as well as sit on the city council and vote on policy and whatever. And the mayor votes as a part of city council. What we voted for in 2022 was to have to redistrict the whole city into districts that made more sense for the kind of populations that live there. And then to reform the city council so that each district has 3 candidates that we vote in by district through ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is where you pick your candidates, you rank them like you would rank, like your mom's giving you 5 options for dinner and you decide what your favorite is, and then your brother decides what his favorite is, and that all gets calculated, and then one clear winner emerges, and that's what you're having for dinner, okay? So ranked choice voting, so we actually have a much more dispersed and fair way of electing these people. But the best part about it, and the reason that it's so important, is that these are just people. Each district has, I think that there's, I don't know how many each district, but there's something like 60 candidates.
Over 100.
Over 100. But not all of them are really like going for it in the race. But anyway, they're regular people. They come from various backgrounds. They have, some of them aren't in any party. A lot of them aren't in any party necessarily. So they're really interesting. It's really interesting to learn about what they believe in, why they've run, and all of that. What's important to our community here is, do they support the music community? And we did a candidate survey that was actually Jesse and Mara put together, and I think a couple other people helped you guys. And show me the stats. It's on our website, which is being buggy right now, but it is at musicportland.org/election. And it's going to have a slick map that will show you by district. But here are some of the key points that we have from
30 candidates.
From the 30 candidates that responded. We invited 60, and we got 30 people to respond, which is a really good response. 100% say they support a campaign to brand and promote PDX as a top independent music city it is, which means other people will see that and come here to produce albums, to do a show, to go to a record label, all of those things. 97% say they will support the repeal of flawed and duplicative noise code that impacts community of color in our city. 93% communicated strong concerns about Live Nation to our city, in our city, and committed to music supportive policies to protect our local scene. So in particular, as we think about this Live Nation issue, and no one knows if it's going to go to the state land use board. It could be very expensive to do that, and we don't have the money to do that. But there are other people who testified who may come forward and do that. Whether that happens or not, if that were to happen, then that would probably kick this can down the road into the new city council. If it doesn't happen, we're going to have a new city council that can inform a lot of how this goes down. We don't know what that looks like, but we do know that one of the big issues with this Live Nation thing is getting them to adhere to any of the rules that are set forth for them. They did not honor they had noise code violations for that Foo Fighters concert they did at Providence Park. They decided to just do a big fireworks show without getting any permitting. This is who we're dealing with as a city, and there's a lot of people who don't even like music, but they do care about that. So this is a corporation that obviously does not care about anything but money, and we're hoping that this new city council will kind of change that culturally for us. So I just wanted to kind of give you some background on how it works, because that I didn't really understand, other than we were getting more city council people. I was like, that sounds more complicated. Why is that a good thing? And that's why it's a good thing. Yeah. So vote, read about these people, open the door when they come canvassing at your house, find out, ask them questions, and read our candidate survey to find out what you think. Oh.
Thank you, Kate. And also, one of the things that we talked about in one of our debriefs was that, one thing the Music Policy Council can support and maybe lobby for these candidates to do is create policies that could rein in Live Nation. Right. So, for example, at Portland Airport, if the food vendors have a restaurant outside of the airport, then they can't charge additional money to people in the airport. And that's something that's very unique to Portland, and it's a city code, I assume. And so we're thinking that's something similar that they could do. Right. Like if you want to do business in Portland and you're doing music, here are the rules, basically.
Yeah, don't be a dick.
So Mira, what are other community options at this point?
So I think that what we have started but have not completed, and it's part of this branding exercise, what are we fighting to protect? We can't just be an organization or a community that's against stuff, because we've got a lot to be for. Everything we've done and been successful with as MusicPortland to date has been data-driven, because that's what these folks use. And the ability to say, there are this many of us, we represent this kind of economic impact, you have to have that. So when we send out surveys, make sure you take them up and make sure all of your friends in music are participating, because that is a major power that we have. We have research. We want to make sure, and we love people that want to send us a note and say they want to help with research, going and confirming what venues are still working, how often during the week they have shows, so we can create a baseline and then keep monitoring these things. Because we are very lucky. I've connected with the filmmakers in Nashville who just created a documentary about the impact of Live Nation in Nashville, talking to the specific venue owners about the exact maneuvers that they did to get them out of business. At this point, Portland has twice as many active music venues with 2 or more shows a week than Nashville does. Nashville is Music City, but almost everything is Live Nation controlled. A difference between Live Nation and AEG, when they try and sort of promote an equivalency, is that in Nashville, AEG came in and worked with local owners to become the music management partner of those venues. So they're staying connected with the local community, and that is just a better, more sustainable way to not come in and just eat it up and extract from it. The beneficiary engagement that we're doing with the business community and the travel community is saying, you guys are successful here because we have this reputation as this independent, non-corporate, creative, innovative music culture. We're the standard bearer for innovative business development. We're the standard bearer for music tourism, which is the fastest growing travel trend in the country. Making sure that we continue to evolve those relationships and that they continue to invest in this community because they understand its mutual benefit. The tax impact that a large venue is going to have is going to pale in comparison to the losses they will feel when we lose our edge as the independent community that we are. We want to do better with media relations and really just keep this story percolating. So the screening of this Nashville documentary is going to be on October 21st at Alberta Abbey. And we may have the filmmakers or the subject at the show. We're also going to invite all of the candidates that filled out the survey to come and talk as well, because these folks are people we all want to know. Let me see. We want to keep focused on external threats. Experts. So we've got experts calling us from all over the country. We're tracking the DOJ lawsuit. We're looking at the TIF issues, and we're holding this other project accountable too. They're not the same project. We didn't want to look at them at the same time. We wanted to be looking at. Sorry, this is why I'm not on stage. Anyway, everything is about fairness, and it's about really looking at what we need to do to protect the treasure that we are. But we also need to look at internal threats. We need to keep supporting and empowering the MPC, the Music Policy Council, because there's no acoustic zoning. You can put up an apartment right next to an 20-year venue. It's gone in 6 months because there's no protection. Noise code, we've mentioned, it's just, it needs to go away. All ages music access. We need to build that into our system and understand that that is a key priority to keep this sector going. Music-supported OLCC changes, we're working on too. And liquor tax abatements for locally owned venues that book, Oregon talent. It's about aligning objectives and aligning things that happen and making sure that we continue to fight for things and for each other, and not just against things, but we're doing that too.
Thank you, Mara. Do you have more to add? No. Okay.
I have one thing to say. Okay. Going off of that, I have one more thing to say that I kept thinking about as everyone was talking. But one important thing to keep in mind, because I've been working on, Jamie Dunphy couldn't be here tonight. He's doing a candidate campaign in East Portland.
Let's give it up for Jamie Dunphy.
Give it up for Jamie Dunphy, who's been leading the fight on this. I've been working as his field organizer, so if anyone wants to come volunteer, shameless plug. But anyway, the important thing about these candidates, there's candidates who stood with us against this Live Nation thing. Yes, they've answered our candidate questionnaire. Yes. Engage your candidates in your district, whoever they are, whoever you do support, because the thing is that music policy going into January is going to be important and relevant to whoever wins, because it's such a big part of the actual economy of the city. It's going to behoove them to be involved. That's one thing. The other thing I want to say is going off, we're not just against things. We need to be creating protections so that the independent music businesses can continue as they do. But the other side of that is that we have the ability to make these policies ourselves and pressure these new city council people to pass them. We can engage with the music business owners, with the businesses, with music educators, with our own communities on what needs to be done. Those conversations are going to need to happen, which is another testament to our win. People are paying attention. We have a responsibility to go out and talk to these people to see what kinds of things they need and you need to be able to work so that we can go deliver those things to the city council and convince them. That's what I'm saying. When I was in Arizona, it was just me, and I was going up in there saying, I'm talking on behalf of 1,000 people. And all I had to do was walk in there and say, this is who I am, and this is what we're talking about, and they listened to me. There's 100 of us here. What if we all did that? If we all came with our different perspectives about these different things we're talking about helping our businesses, about keeping housing for musicians and people, keeping these things going, they're going to listen. So just keep that in mind, that you have more than a voice than just voting. And if your candidate isn't, again, letting it go to them. No, they're listening to us. We go and keep going and keep talking and keep engaging. And that is what's going to build this up as a music city. So.
Thank you, Jesse. Awesome. All right, so I want to start, opening this up to the audience here, and we had a lot of people who stepped up during this, and we had a lot of support too. I want to give a shout out to John McIsaac, who did so much for us when it came to our media relations. Who else? Tony, who we had a volunteer, Tony, who I'm messing up his last name. Sorry, Tony. He's a filmmaker, and he helped to capture a lot of our events. In addition to Stephen, who's here all the time, we so appreciate you. But yeah, the events that were captured while we were going through this fight, and tons of people on the Music Policy Council who gave of their time for meetings and lots of project management, documents and emails back and forth and back and forth. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that happened. But I wanted to open it up to you guys because this was a very emotional and highly charged period of time that seemed to go very fast and also very slow at the same time. So we just, we want to acknowledge that this did not go our way. We did not get what we hoped in terms of the outcome. That doesn't mean it's over, but we also want to acknowledge that people probably have feelings about that. And so now is the time, if you have something that you want to share in terms of what your experience was during this, I invite you to stand up and share with us so we can all debrief together. Or questions.
Hi, I'm JD. I'm a keyboard player. I want to start with a question for Marshall. If you take Live Nation out of this, if you pretend like somebody else would operate the venue, is there an actual land use question? And if so, what is it?
The site is too small for the kind of venue that's planned for it. That's why they've had to ask for an adjustment to do the loading and unloading in the public right-of-way. I think there are significant questions about the safety of the transportation system around there, but I'm not a land use expert. So I think what the attorney who represented MusicPortland said is that she felt like there's a very good substantive grounds for an appeal to the next step, the Land Use Board of Appeals, and a better than 50% chance that the Land Use Board of Appeals would spot a technical problem with the Portland City Council's decision. So, I mean, it's an eye of the beholder question a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I mean, that was the part that befuddled me. Like, in the record, 5 people have died crossing the train tracks in the last 5 years. Like, and inviting thousands of people down to that site right next to the train just doesn't seem like a great idea. But the land use process is only a lawyer can love. Because it's very technical and dry. So I'm going to stop boring everybody with a description about it.
Can I just say something? I'm also not a lawyer, but one of the things that really befuddled me is the idea of 3,000 people going down there at one time. And they kept bringing up that, OMSI has 3,000 people a day. And it's like, yeah, that's spread over many, 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 many hours. It's not 3,000, right, and with a ton of parking. There's literally no parking, and they do not have to make a parking structure.
I think they were putting parking on the east side of the railroad tracks.
Well, it was the parking area identified in the land use application are the streets in the neighborhood. And so, and 2/3 of the streets in the parking area defined in the application are on the east side of the tracks.
But there are never trains stopping.
Yeah, so, obviously, and you can look online at, all of this information is in the public record, so, have a great time because it's an exhaustive amount of very questionable information, but there's all sorts of things like that. They got a waiver to not put as many bike, whatever you call it, place you put your bike, which doesn't make sense if there's supposed to be, the idea is that there's public transit, which means the train on the other side of the tracks, right, the streetcar. So that doesn't work. And so then there is the bike, and then they also got to have a smaller green roof. There's just all sorts of things about it that really seemed odd. Frank?
Is there a private investigator ever brought up?
No, but that's a good idea. You want to be a private investigator? One thing I wanted to say in terms of people that helped us that is actually really super pivotal is that our members and fans of MusicPortland helped us raise the money that we needed to get the permit, to appeal the permit in the first place. So thank you, everyone who donated to our little campaign. Any more questions?
Questions, comments?
I do.
There's the.
Okay. Check. Okay, it worked with me. I just wanted to, I'm kind of old school. I'm a lot older than a lot of you guys. I wanted to, number one, recognize Pearl Jam's, contributions to fighting this same cause against Ticketmaster, and that's kind of even Pearl Jam's a little past my generation, believe it or not. We're talking Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath with me, but but anyway, the thing I wanted to ask is that I used to have a lot of respect for Dave Grohl, drummer for that band Nirvana. I think that might, bring some memories back. And he was actually, his band, Foo Fighters, performed at this event that we're all talking about. And I'm kind of conflicted right now. I'm wondering, because his past record has been really awesome, and from what I've seen, in my little world, how much responsibility does he have?
None. I'm going to say none. I don't know that definitively.
Okay.
Unless he sat backstage and said, hey, let's really screw this city over and have a fireworks display and break the noise code.
I only say that because his band was the band that.
Artists are just
Right,
making money.
but
They're doing their business.
I doubt that. I definitely doubt that.
You
None of
think-
the artists that are represented by Live Nation really have that much of a choice. They do, but at that level, with those kinds of touring in all of these amphitheaters and everything, I don't even know the percentage of amphitheaters that are owned by Live Nation, but it's significant.
It's a lot.
So in order to accommodate the crowds that they draw, they have to work with Live Nation. But Live Nation is in charge of controlling the production team and allowing those sort of infractions of the city code and the agreements that were made with the city.
Well,
That is 100% Live Nation.
Thank you very much, because I have this fan thing about Dave Grohl, and I've followed his career, and I've always fought for, I always believed him in the past, and I didn't want to think that he, was involved in it.
You can love him. You can love him.
Okay,
You're
thank
allowed
you.
to love.
Dave Grohl's awesome, guys.
I mean, I could say one thing about that, like, I've never worked on an organizing project where people were so afraid of the opposition. If you read the Justice Department complaint, there's a whole section on intimidation and retaliatory practices, but it was shocking to me how other venue owners and artists were so reluctant to speak out against Live Nation because of that kind of behavior. And that silence spoke very loudly to me.
Yeah. I mean, I had a 50 cap tiny venue that said, oh my God, I'm right behind you, we're with you, we just can't say anything. Because there are records of Live Nation going in and just closing smaller rooms because they're trying to sort of centralize the stuff. And I mean, it's a business, and I understand, if you're supposed to maximize shareholder dividends or whatever prompts capitalism, I get it, but it doesn't work for culture. It doesn't work for us.
I'm just curious, how do they close those smaller rooms?
We're going to be showing a video, or showing a movie, a feature-length documentary on October 21st, where you will hear from those smaller rooms. There's a lot of different ways that it's happened. Sometimes you buy the building and then evict the venue. Sometimes, sometimes it's ticketing. Sometimes it's starving them out of artists, or taking up the artists that they've made famous, where they kind of lose their momentum and their cachet. There's just a lot of stuff. It's a really competitive market, and they've got a loaded deck. It makes it hard.
Do they come in and basically buy a room, go into a 300 cap room or a 400 cap room and buy it, and then make them use Ticketmaster for tickets?
That's absolutely one way. Sometimes they just close them down.
When I say buy a room, I'm just saying, buy it for the night.
Oh, no, that's different. No, we like that.
One of the things that they do is that they will restrict if they manage an artist or have certain agreements with artists or labels, that they will restrict that they will make the venue use Ticketmaster or one of the Ticketmaster subsidiaries in order to have that artist. And then there's all the fees, because they claim that the artists determine the fees, but it's all very strange. I don't know the last time you bought a ticket from Ticketmaster, but there's more fees than anybody can imagine. Sometimes almost 50% of the ticket cost. And so, and then there's all sorts of complexity there with the resale market, which they say that they're not part of, and that's all of kind of what happened with Pearl Jam going in '94, going to Congress to fight against Ticketmaster, and now Ticketmaster and Live Nation have combined. So basically they control an entire market. The ticketing makes more money than actually their live, any of the actual venue booking promotion stuff, according to what they say on their lovely little website. But everything is public because they're a publicly traded company. So you can go do some research and see how many small venues and companies they've purchased internationally, and it is 4 pages of scrolling.
And the Justice Department complaint has a very significant section on these business practices, and it's not usually something that, like, a legal brief is not something I would normally recommend that you read, but in this case, I think it's
Pretty comprehensive.
well, it just said to me, like, it was chilling to me reading these pages when I first started working on this. Like, it was
And the other,
not, you know, like, probably not the material you put in your, like, online dating profile. Yeah.
I wanted to qualify too, though, that for nearly 20 years, Live Nation has been here. Live Nation has been here and promoting shows into our local venues with good relationships. They haven't required that they use Ticketmaster. They haven't done it. The difference is, I mean, we really like the local promoter. And the difference is that in every city, once they have their own brick and mortar venue, the whole business model changes. All of this stuff that the DOJ is talking about that isn't on his dating profile is, you know, it's all laid out there, and it's just, it's a very clear and often repeated process when they come into a city once they build something brick and mortar. And so it's always been, you know, we've been very consistent, I think, in saying, you know, yeah, we have questions about their practices, but we're not anti-Live Nation entirely. We're anti-Live Nation venue in our city. That's the distinction. And yeah, so that's where we keep on looking.
Is MusicPortland going to endorse any campus?
Come on, Tom.
Hello. Two things. One, is MusicPortland going to endorse any candidates, especially after October 1st? Okay.
We don't endorse, but we've got 30 of them that have stood up and given detail. Oh, damn it. We've got 30 of them, 30 of them that have given detailed answers and show that they're caring and thinking and interested and are doing the research. So I think there's going to be lots of choices. We're not telling you who to vote for. We just want to make sure that music is part of your calculus when you select who you want to vote for.
But you'll list who those 30 people are, so at least that narrows it down a little bit.
Oh, yeah, you can go to musicportland.org/election and you'll see them. And you'll see the names of the people that chose not to participate.
Okay.
And that's another piece of it. How long you been in town?
2 months.
Okay, everybody, give this guy a big, give this guy a welcome.
That was my comment. I just wanted to, you know, I moved here from New York, and like, I'd been looking for an organization like this in New York for years, because it's like, venues close all the time. There's no one who gives a shit. They, you know, New York takes its venues for granted, and just like the fact that there are so many people here, like organized, like have clear goals that they're working towards, you know, it's amazing. So, I mean, your existence is a win for me.
Good. Welcome to the family. The fabulous Ben.
Hello, my name is Ben Nolte, and I just wanted to thank you again for everything you did for the policy and to fight Live Nation. I kind of stood from the sidelines a little bit during this episode, although I would have liked to have been there standing with you and testifying with you. But I guess my question is who are the major competitors of Live Nation in Portland, and who are the main competitors for Ticketmaster in Portland? And has anyone ever tried to make a competitor company to these two entities, and did they succeed? Did they fail? Like, is it possible to create a competitor as part of this new movement too, moving forward to do it the right way? I guess that's my question. The next question is which mayoral candidates are supporting MusicPortland's agenda?
Liv, Eva, Carmen, and Wilson. I'll say it again. Liv, Ostroff, Osthus, Carmen Rubio, and Keith Wilson. are the ones that answered, and Mingus Maps and Renee Gonzalez chose not to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about a competitor.
They're on the site. Oh, and in terms of competitors, Ticketmaster dwarfs everybody. Any major ticketing platform that was a competitor, they ultimately gobbled up. So they kind of became this, they're just huge. And like, we have Ticket Tomato, which is a locally run ticketing platform. It's fantastic. Does Monkey doesn't have his own ticketing? No. But not for ticketing. Are you asking about booking or ticketing?
Yeah, ticketing.
Yeah.
And then also like the developer side, the Live Nation view. Is there any developers who could compete against Live Nation as well?
Well, the problem, so full disclosure, I work with the Monkey team.
Okay.
They're a local promoter. They're teamed up with one of the other big multinational companies that do entertainment, AEG, the Anschutz Entertainment Group. And they worked for years to try to work with other local venue owners to come up with capital to build a venue like the Live Nation venue or the venue that my clients are working on in the Lloyd District. There's just not enough, there's not deep enough, these venues are likely to cost in the $50 to $70 million. They're just, even a very successful local promoter, like, can't assemble that kind of capital. Like, it's really, is too big a challenge. So, and it's one of the, it's one of the downsides of kind of where live entertainment is going in the world right now, where like there's just more and more of these giant corporations that are kind of dominating the at least the top of the market, where like you get to these big shows that, go from city to city or around the world. Like the market is definitely dominated by these giant companies.
Yeah, we can't compete with them, but we can compete as a branded, celebrated, internationally recognized independent music culture that is non-genre specific. I think it's about putting a wrapper on us and celebrating and lifting up what we are and what we have to lose, and getting all of the different stakeholders behind it, understanding that it's in their interest. I mean, you've had me talking to East Portland businesses. It's like making sure that they understand that their bread's buttered here. It's not, people want to come to Portland to work and live, not because, young people, not necessarily because we have a symphony. It's because we've got this celebrated music culture. We got to lean into that. We have to wrap it up, make it something that is so clearly valuable to all the different folks that it is worth everyone fighting for.
Thank you.
So, quick raise of your hands. How many of you wrote into City Council as part of this?
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. How many of you actually came to any one of our events, whether it was a rally or one of these Q&As, town halls? So, thank you. Thank you so much for participating in this effort. We appreciate every single one of you, everyone who's listening online. Thanks to all of your communities who joined in as well.
And thanks to Turn, who is still rocking their anti-Live Nation signs.
Yeah. So,
If anybody feels too shy to ask a question in front of everyone, and especially if they feel like it's a dumb question, come to me. I love dumb questions. I don't think that there's dumb questions, and I might not know the answer, but we can find out together by asking the really smart people.
There's no such thing as a dumb question.
awesome.
I have a lot of dumb questions. I'm not sure.
Thank you, sir. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for. Oh, we have another. All right.
Steve.
One more. One more.
I'm Steve. Hi, guys. Hi, Steve. I have one question about LUBA, Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA. I have recent experience with them in a different area altogether, and I wanted to know, is there a review, has it been appealed and sent to LUBA yet, or is that an in-between process?
So, after the findings, the city council officially adopted its decision last Wednesday. After that, it has to mail that decision, a physical copy of that decision, to everybody who testified. Once all of that mail project is complete, there's 21 days from then for someone to appeal to LUBA. And so I really have no idea where that's going, but there's a couple more weeks for people to figure that out.
Okay.
But the process, I mean, it's $300 to appeal to LUBA, and what the expensive part is, actually making all the technical legal arguments, which is, yeah.
I get that.
Yeah,
and the rest of
that's
my
the
questions are
expensive part,
really
yeah.
detailed, so I'm not going to waste everybody's time with that. I just want to know where that part of it was, because
Yeah, we're in the
next-
interregnum between the city council decision being finalized and the appeal period is open until, call it roughly Halloween.
yeah, 21 days.
And do you have expertise or experience to share?
I have LUBA experience to share. So it's a completely different scenario, but it was a fight against a development that is ongoing and is going to go into a floodplain in the little town that I live in. A big developer out of Texas wants to put, 44 houses on a floodplain, a known floodplain. And it got through the city council, long story there, and it went to a LUBA, Land Use Board of Appeals, and on 2 of the 5 complaints, they actually remanded it back to the city on those 2 points. And so this comes back down to the technical part about, what were the complaints, or were there zoning restrictions that were violated in the application or weren't supported? This gets into the weeds, but it can, even on one count, it can be remanded back to the city, in which a city council then has to vote again, or it goes through the planning commission, and then the city council has to vote. And if there's a new city council coming in, then you have yet another opportunity to fight this. But you got to get to that stage. You got to get it into LUBA, and you got to get it remanded back to the city.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. Do you have another question? All right.
So this is super educational for me. My name is Bob Simmerall, and I am running for City Council in District 2 here in North and North Portland.
Thanks for being here.
I'm here to learn. I'm here to listen. I'm here as a passionate music and local independent artist supporter. And so this has been super helpful for me, and thank you for hosting this narrative. The question that I have, and I've never been a bureaucrat, I've never run for political office, but I think right now when we go to 12 folks on council, it's a critical time. And the voices that are echoing right now, I'm hearing. I come from a career, and I hate to use the word, but on the enterprise and on the marketing and on that side of business. And what I hear is there are issues that we're fighting against and wins that we're fighting against with this effort. And they're all valid, and they're all right, and they're all pure, and they're all just. But we're losing. So the way to move forward, the way that I think about it, if I think about going forward, I would say, how many folks are going to be traveling into Portland from other cities to this large venue to hear this big act? And with all of those folks coming in, what if together we collectively marketed local music tours around that? Pull their calendar out and market to pull those people coming in from other areas to go to the local venues and market the brand of local independent artist music in Portland. Optimize the opportunity that's coming this way, and let's pivot and move forward. So we can continue to fight against the winds that are there, or we can optimize the opportunity of the traffic that's coming in to promote local artists and promote the brand that you guys are fighting for. It's the way that I look at it. It's the way that I look at like moving forward. Let's take the millions or hundreds of thousands of people that are going to come into this venue, and let's promote it. Let's pull up their calendar, build an independent marketing organization, and leverage that audience and market to that audience separate from Live Nation, separate from Ticketmaster. Fuck them. Take them out and go and take them out and optimize the traffic that they're bringing in by just rolling with the flow and promoting local artists in Portland. It's the way that I look at solving problems. So my name's Bob Simmerl, and I support everything that you guys are doing. But let's move forward and optimize and capitalize and promote the independent music in Portland. That's how I would lean into that. I'm Bob Simmerl. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Anyone else? All right. Cool. Any final thoughts from?
If you're not a member of MusicPortland, one last time. If you're not yet a member of MusicPortland, these events are always free because we want to make sure that people are. Engaged and hearing. There's no impediments to it, but all of our work, we're still scrambling to try and figure out how to do it. And so please be a member. If you're not, it's like $4 a month or $35 for a year, and it really helps and it matters a lot, and all of your support does. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. And shout out to Renee Musquiz, who can't be here tonight. They're Director of Operations.
Renee blew us off to go see PJ Harvey.
She deserves a day off.
Live Nation promoted event.
I know.
Yeah.
She was really sorry about that. But
Yeah.
But she totally deserves a day off. She's been amazing.
It's been great. So I just want to acknowledge all of you. I want to acknowledge our Music Policy Council. I want to thank every one of you for participating and being here tonight. Have a good night, stay and network, and support Turn, Turn, Turn. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.